Hello students. Chapter 14, The Revolt of 1857, the First War for Freedom of India. India is famous for its riches since ancient times. Its spices, silk, cotton textiles, gold, pearls, etc. were also world famous. These articles were highly popular in other countries, and India had been carrying on trade with countries like Rome, Greece, and Arab Empire for long. The arrival of European traders. About 500 years ago, some European countries decided to trade with India, and the Arabs were among the first to come to India. Later, Greeks, Romans, and Europeans also decided to trade with India, so they began to search sea routes to India. Vasco da Gama was the first Portuguese sailor who discovered the sea route of India via the Cape of Good Hope in 1498. His ship reached at Calicut in Kerala. Soon the Portuguese had a monopoly over the spice trade from the ruler of Calicut. They amassed great wealth from India and became very rich. They fought against the Arab traders and drove them away. So here हम यहाँ पे देख रहे हैं कि किस तरीके से यूरोप आए यहाँ पे ग्रीक्स रोमन्स यूरोपियंस इस तरीके से इंडिया में आए और कैसे सी रूट जो है वो डिस्कवर हुआ और किस तरीके से यहाँ पे बाहर के लोग आए देन उसके नेक्स्ट पैराग्राफ में हम ये देख रहे हैं strengthening of British hold. Towards the end of the 16th century, other European countries also came in India for trade. The Dutch, British, and French tried to gain a foothold in India. In the end, the British came out victorious and succeeded in throwing out every European power from the India. So British भी यहाँ पे पहले बिजनेस करने के लिए आया और उसके बाद जितने भी यूरोपियंस थे उनको यहाँ से बाहर निकाल दिया. In 1600, the British formed the East Indian Company as the first trading company in Surat. Later, with the permission of Mughal Emperor Jahangir, they set up many trading centers at Chennai, Kolkata, and Mumbai. They had great godowns at these places. Later on, they built forts and started keeping their own army with the excuse to protect these godowns. उसके बाद हम पढ़ेंगे बैटल ऑफ प्लाजी के बारे में. Shirajud-Daul was the Nawab of Bengal at that time. He was an effective ruler, but the British refused to accept his authority. British wants the fortification of Calcutta. The Nawab objected to it, but the British did not stop. It compelled the Nawab to declare war against them. A big battle was fought at Plassey between Nawab and British in 1757. The Nawab was defeated in this war and the British became very powerful in Bengal. So here we are talking about Battle of Plassey, जहाँ पे सिराजुद्दौला किस तरीके से वहाँ पे उन्होंने उस टाइम पे बंगाल के नवाब थे और किस तरीके से लड़ाई लड़ी और फिर हार गए वो. Then expansion of British war. After Bengal, the British started expanding their political power in rest of the country. At that time, India was divided into small kingdoms. The rulers of these kingdoms kept fighting with each other. ब्रिटिश ने इस बात का एडवांटेज उठाया और वो सपोर्ट करने लगे एक एक किंग को against the another and in the bargain gained more power and wealth. They signed treaties with the king who accepted the British supremacy and thus East India Company, a mere trading company, was formed. Discontent amongst the Indians. Once firmly established in India, the English started exploiting the people. They used unfair means to exploit the farmers, traders, and the rulers of princely states. The English exploited the farmers by making them pay very high taxes. Even in times of natural disasters such as floods and droughts, the farmers had to pay taxes. So ऐसे टाइम में जहाँ पे farmers exploited होते थे और they were not able to pay their taxes, उसके बावजूद भी उनको फोर्स किया जाता था taxes पे करने के लिए. They had to cultivate crops which the English had asked them to. Farmers were forced to grow indigo and cotton. उनको force किया जाता था ये crops grow करने के लिए. These were brought at very low rates and sold at very high rates in England and other countries. The farmers became very poor and many died due to starvation. From England, mill-made cloth was sent to India as machine-made cloth was cheaper. The handloom industry of India suffered. Lakhs of weavers became unemployed. The English also did not allow the Indians to open mills and factories. Indian traders were not allowed to trade in items of their choice. Indian rulers and princes were unhappy with the English. A law was passed by the English which stated that if a ruler did not have a male child, then upon the death of that ruler, the kingdom would be taken over by the English. By introducing such unjust laws and using unfair means, the English sought to expand their hold over India. However, the dissatisfaction and anger of most Indians led to revolts. Revolts against the English. There were many revolts in various parts of the country from 1816 to 1857, but these were easily suppressed. At last, in 1857, there was a big uprising against the British injustice and cruelty, which spread over a large part of the country, and it is known as 1857. So, in this paragraph, as you can study, as you can read, that we are studying about the revolt of 1857. So, what had happened actually? From 1816 to 1857, all these revolts were suppressed. But in 1857, surprisingly, British के unjust और cruelty के खिलाफ लोग आवाजें उठाने लग गए. The revolt was started by the Indian soldiers in the British Army. A new rifle called the Enfield has been introduced in India. The rumor spread that fats from cows and pigs have been used in making the bullets of rifles. Soldiers had to bite off their bullets, and which they refused with their mouth before loading in the rifles. This was against the religious sentiments of both Hindus and the Muslims, and they all refused that no, they will not do this. So the revolt started in Meerut, and it soon spread to large parts of northern and central India. It was joined by farmers, craftsmen, and other sections of the society. The soldiers declared the last Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar as their leader, and the revolt was held by Nana Sahib and Tanta Tope in Kanpur, Rani Lakshmibai at Jhansi. Then the failure of the revolt of 1857. The revolt of 1857 was a very brave effort of the Indian people, as English had better organized armies and superior weapons. But then, this revolt was easily suppressed by the British. The sepoys were imprisoned, sentenced to death, and years of hard labor. The uniforms were stripped off publicly, and hundreds of people were tied off from the mouths of tanks and blown away. Several hundreds were stranged. The two sons of Bahadur Shah Jafar were killed, and their heads were cut off and presented to their father. After the revolt of 1857, the rule of East India Company came to an end, and now the English government felt that India could not be ruled by a private company. So the control of the country was taken away from the company, and India was placed under the direct rule of Queen Victoria. The English government appointed a government general to rule over India. He was also called the Viceroy. The number of English soldiers in the army was increased. No change came with the changes of government. Indians were still treated very badly, and there was against a rule of suppression. The Indians organized themselves for a new struggle against the British English government. Social and religious reformers. The English had introduced modern education in India. Gradually, educated Indians introduced many social and religious reformers such as Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Debendranath Tagore, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and Dayanand Saraswati. They strongly protested against social practices such as sati, killing of female babies, child marriage, and caste system. They also encouraged remarriage of widows and education of women. Rise of nationalism. Educated Indians realized that English now wanted to keep India poor and backward. This realization with the Indians, slowly the feeling of unity or nationalism grew, and they became very strong. The growing feeling of nationalism resulted in the Indian National Congress being formed in 1885. The Indian National Congress was started by an Englishman named Alan Octavian Hume. The first session of the Congress was held at Bombay, now Mumbai, and it was attended by 72 delegates at the session W.C. Banerjee. The Congress thereafter met every year in different cities, and Dadabhai Naroji, Raduddin Taibi, Firoz Shah Mehta, Surendranath Banerjee, and Gopal Krishna Gokhale were some of the Indian leaders who became the presidents of the Indian National Congress. The Congress slowly became very strong. It awakened the spirit of unity among the Indians. At the same time, it requested the English government to introduce reforms to improve the living conditions of the people. The growing popularity of the Congress worried the English government to suppress the rising spirit of nationalism, the government made many strict laws, and the English encouraged disunity between the Hindus and Muslims and used the policy of divide and rule. So, what are the points to be remembered? India is very famous for its riches since ancient times. Arabs were the first traders to come to India for trade. The Battle of Plassey were found in 1757. Bahadur Shah Zafar was the last Mughal emperor. After the suppression of the revolt, the administration of India was taken over by the government of Finland, and reformers such as Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Devendranath Tagore, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and various other people were social and religious reformers. That's all for this chapter, students. I will see you in the next chapter. Thank you very much.